Thank you, ambassadors. You rock. We began key new partnerships with the Oswald Trust, Manappuram Finance, and Apollo Hospitals in India. We solidified our one universal permanent brand. We serve, so that everyone around the world will recognize us. We have converted all leadership positions into new structure called Global Action Team. This brings a new level of action, accountability, and aspiration for each leader around the world. We have a new LCIF campaign 100, that will take off with a great start with millions already contributed. Dear donors, you rock. We launched a centennial postal stamp in India to give a message to almost 1.4 billion inhabitants of our country. In the first few days of a year, a blind lion Casey Amit unfurled our centennial flag on top of the Mount Everest. Today, the efforts of lions have placed us on top of the world. For these new initiatives, would you like to give some credit to ourselves? Yes, we have made significant progress this year. But there is one particular area of progress that has truly brought us into the 21st century. Technology. We have 1.7 million lions and leos in 204 countries. However, each lion or leo must feel part of not just his or her club, but also part of the Lions Club International family. Now, how do we connect everyone? The answer is technology. Going back to our early days, our founder Melvin Jones wrote hundreds of letters by hand and sent it to clubs every month. And that became very difficult when expansion was done. More and more clubs were coming into place, began to experience international expansion. Then we began to use telephones, email, mobile phones, and social media. And simultaneously, so what would Melvin Jones be in 2018? What would be Melvin Jones in 2018? Let's call it a Melvin Jones 2.0. So what would he do? The answer is integration. New technology has made it possible to integrate platforms. And we are taking advantage of these smartphones in the world than there are computers. You saw Lynn today doing some exercise on the smartphone? Okay. How many of you have downloaded MyLine app on your smartphone? Raise your hand. For those who did raise your hand, congratulations, my friend, you rock. For those who did not raise their hand, I would ask, why not? The MyLine app, my friend, is now available to you. And trust me, this app is as powerful as its name. And that's not all. I'm excited to preview the next evolution of our next global web presence. Our new global website will launch in very near future. Friends, it's designed to help us better tell our story, to the world, do a better job of recruiting new members, provide more value to our members with easy to find resources and tools. We are integrating the My Line and app with a new website in a very special place. The new Club Finder tool. This tool will enable anyone in the world to find your club. And if your club is using My Line and keeping all of its information up to date, your club results will be populated with all the same information. I encourage you to visit the tech zone of our exhibit hall here in the Marquee Ballroom to learn more about this innovative new technology. Will you visit the tech zone to learn more? I didn't hear from this side. Will you visit the tech zone? Something very important for all of us, my dear friend. Not just. So, what grade you would like to give to our technology? Not just A, but A plus. This has been a year I will never forget. It has been a year in which we accomplished so many things. Now I want to acknowledge someone who has been my side for the past 44 years, bearing me, and without whom I could never have accomplished all my dreams. She is the love of my life. My partner, my rock, my beloved wife, Navita. For your devotion as my wife, as my partner in service, I am pleased to present to you the next level of Progressive Melvin Jones Fellowship, a 2-diamond yellow gold pin.
Wow.
Dear Lions, I started with many numbers. 101, 101st year, 50 LCIF, 60 Leos, 30 women in Lionism. Now let me end with the most important number of all. I hope you will agree with me, that is the number 1. To me, this was not just 101st year, it was the first year of new era. We have taken a one step forward. I'm just one person, my dear friends. With you all, I become unstoppable. We become unstoppable. You know, it is said, this is the power of we. To paraphrase Neil Armstrong, when he put his foot on the moon for the first time, he said one single step on this, like this, could be a massive step for the welfare of the mankind in the world. So take that giant leap for mankind. So I am requesting you, my dear friends, take that small little step to be a giant step for our organization. At this point of time, bidding adieu, I can safely say from what we all have witnessed, experienced and enjoyed in the past year, nothing succeeds like success. There is no reality other than the power of we, and there is no great cause on this other than the cause of service. And finally, there is no greater high than the high of action. All that have been able to be achieved in the past year is undoubtedly owing to our allegiance to this most powerful word called action. I leave with a prayer. I request and a call for adherence. Let's keep this alive. We plus serve plus action is equal to success. Do you agree with me? I'm going to finish this morning with one more demonstration, and you are going to help me. When we join hands together, we are stronger. That's all. Let's rise for a while. We have been sitting for a long time. Join hands with raised arm. When I say we, you say sir. God bless you all. Thank you, Lions. Together, we rock. Thank you. Namaste. Our business session was held yesterday, which included our introduction and nomination for candidates of international office. To continue the report from the nominating committee, it's my pleasure to welcome the chairperson of this committee, past International President Jim Erwin. Jim.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished officers, board members, Lions, Leos, and guests. I am honored as chairperson of the nominating committee to present our final report. Yesterday afternoon at the business meeting, we declared the nominations for the office of International President, International First Vice President, International Second Vice President, and International Director. The election takes place today, tomorrow, and Tuesday. The nominees are on the ballot and on the screen. On behalf of your nominating committee, it is now my privilege to place in nomination the name of the candidate who has been properly endorsed and certified for the office of International Third Vice President. The candidate will have a seconder who is entitled under the rules to address the delegates. It will be the purpose of the seconder to present the candidate who will have the privilege of addressing the delegates of this convention. The total time to speak for the seconder and candidate is 8 minutes. They can divide the time however they wish. It is the responsibility of the candidate to determine how he chooses to use that time. I wish to recognize past International President Wayne Madden and past International Director A.P. Singh, who will serve as the official timekeeper. And again, let me tell you, they have been well trained for their job. The timekeepers will rise when the candidate has 30 seconds left of his allotted 8 minutes. When there are 15 seconds left, they both will come forward and stand by the speaker. And if the speaker doesn't move, somebody be ready to catch him. It's also the candidate's responsibility to signal Brian Sheehan for the office of Vice President. I call upon past International President Wing Kun Tam to second that nomination.
Good morning. Good morning, fellow Lions. Today, I'm standing in front of you to campaign, not for myself. Don't worry. As an international president and past international presidents, it is our duty not only taking a lead for the organization, but most importantly, is how we are able to identify the future leaders for this organization. When I was serving as your international president and a member as well as a chairperson of LCIF, I was given the opportunity to identify a few potential presidents for this organization. And I'm so excited that to see our immediate past President Bob Kulu was elected by the Lions in the world, and following by the first female president being elected by the Lions of the world. However, I'm having a dream that within our organization, as our international president mentioned, are we able to enter in the new century of our organization with high-tech and technology. I'm a technology idiot. It's difficult for me to understand sometimes how to work on the computers. It was my dream if there's one day someone is able to teach me and help me in making the technology, the communication directly to all the lines in the world, but most importantly is being easily handled. And I find a professional. He's not only known to the technologies, and he's also having the same dream like myself, to let all the lines in the world how we are able to communicate among ourselves. And today, this young man is not only knowing his profession, computers and software, but most importantly, for all the lines in the world, we all serve like a member of the family. And for him, with his lovely wife Laurie and 4 great members of the family, the children, that they are all behind him. And I'm totally moved and convinced that this is our future. I'm going to vote for him. I have one vote. Most importantly, are you able to join me together to vote for him? Thank you. Fellow Lions, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce to you the candidate for third Vice President for Lions Up International for the year of 2018 and 19, past International Director Brian Sheehan. Please.
It's also a great day to be a recipient of the wonderful things that Lions do each and every day. I'm hoping that I have your support as we travel through this journey together to continue to make this an awesome organization. You have been a part of a great 100 years. But as we move forward into this great second century of service, we need to embrace change. I know we're all open to change as long as we continue to do the same things we've always done. But no, we need to make ourselves better as a member. We need to be able to make ourselves better as a club, and we have to be able to challenge ourselves. We need to take some of the great traditions that has made us a success in the past, and we need to be able to blend that with new ideas and creative inspiration. And yes, we got to be able to blend that with new technologies as well. We need to be able to utilize the young talent and the leadership and the knowledge they have in our Leo's clubs, as well as our younger members as well. And we have to be able to share that with the seasoned members' knowledge and experience. And we have to be able to shrink that generation gap we have in this organization. Are you going to be part of that team? We need to see quality members. Yes, quantity is very important, but quality is the most. We need members like each and every one of you that understands the benefits that we have in this organization, and you're in it for the long haul, not just for a few years. The strength of the team is each individual member, and the strength of each individual member is the entire team. I come from a very small community, Bird Island, Minnesota. It has 978 people in our community, and we have a club of 67 members. We have young members, we have seasoned members, we have male members, we have female members, and we may do different projects than you. However, we are the same as you are, even though we're halfway around the world. People have asked me why I continue on with this journey. My father, Fabian Sheehan, told all of his 8 children that you take your talents and you take your skills that you've learned and you take them back and you share them. I love my community. I love my family, I love my Lions family. I know I can make a difference, and I know you want to make a difference as well, and I wish to do that together with you. I ask you one question. Are you with me?
Yes.
You will have a great team with Lori and myself, and together we will achieve more. Again, are you with me?
Yeah.
Then let's get ready to rally! Everybody to stand and have the demonstration begin.
demonstration chairperson have advised me that they now desire to consider this demonstration closed. It was within the time limits, and I request, in accordance with the rules of procedure adopted by this convention, that you declare all nominations for the 2018 International Convention be closed. I would like to express my thanks to all members of the nominating committee. I'd also like to express my appreciation to past International President Wayne Mantle, past International Director ABC, our timekeeper. Mr. President, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve as the chairperson of this committee.
Thank you, past International President Erwin, and please convey our thanks to the members of the committee. In accordance with the rules of procedures, I declare that all nominations for the 2018 convention are hereby closed. Lines and news, we gather together in our clubs, in our districts, and here at our convention each year in the spirit of service. Service is what defines and inspires us to extend a hand to our neighbors in need in more than 200 countries around the world. As we look to our second century of service, we are focusing on our global causes. Vision. We will continue our work with the blind and visually impaired. Hunger. No child should go to bed hungry ever. Environment. We are cleaning up our planet so that everyone can lead healthier lives. Child cancer. We are working to give children with cancer a second chance at life. And diabetes. Lions are committed to putting an end to this global epidemic, and right here in Las Vegas, as we close our centennial celebration, my apology, we are excited to unveil the new phase of our long-standing mission, our service journey. It's a journey that we have already been on together, but an innovative approach that will make a real difference in our clubs and your communities. The journey will now be easier and faster, helping us easier, faster, together to reach our goal of 200 million people to be served every year. And we'll touch more lives. Learn more about the great new tool set that you experience, the service journey for yourself in a special interactive exhibit in the MGM Marquee Ballroom. Here is the new service journey will support our 5 global causes and encourage and inspire you in the life-changing work you are doing.
This is my camp director, Sarah. I have had diabetes for 6 years, and I've been going to Camp Buck and Camp Vegas for 4 years now. I have been participating in multiple camps run by Lions. It felt like I was part of a community when I go to camp, because there's other kids just like me that have the same type of disease as me. Let me tell you a story about when I first went to camp. So when I was first going to camp, I felt nervous, sick, scared, because I was leaving my family. But when I got to camp, there's others just like me. And there was, like, when I got to my cabin, we made friends and we introduced ourselves. Thank you, Lions.
I am Lion Judy Temple. 10 years ago, my life changed dramatically. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes after contracting one of 3 viruses tied to the flu. Now I'm fighting to regulate my glucose, my insulin, and my life.
I am Dr. Carlisle Goddard. I'm an endocrinologist. I've been treating persons living with diabetes for over 20 years. I'm also a Lion. I'm from multiple District 60, here from the island of Barbados in the Caribbean. I have seen the effects of diabetes, blindness, amputations, and strokes. But I've also seen persons conquering their fears and managing this diabetes. Whereas diabetes can cause death and illness, it can also be a redefining moment in our lives. Lion and Leos, we're not only knights of the blind. We can and we must help persons in our communities redefine their moments.
I'm immediate past International President Chancellor Bob Corlew. Last year at our international convention in Chicago, all 5 of my children were at the convention with me. Sadly, a few months after that convention, my oldest son, Robbie, who suffered from type 1 diabetes, passed away. He was 28 years old. I've seen the impact that Lions make in the lives of millions of people around the world. I know Lions can make a dramatic impact in the fight against the global epidemic of diabetes.
I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta. I'm a practicing neurosurgeon and the chief medical correspondent for CNN, and I'm here to talk about diabetes. Hello, everyone. I am truly honored to be here. I've been excited about this, wanting to come and talk with all of you about what I think is one of the most pressing health issues of our time, diabetes. An issue that I think we can all be empowered to do something about. I've got to say, first of all, this is a pretty big room. A lot of people here. I think we may have more people actually watching right now than we do on CNN in any given day. Always slightly get it. But I am delighted to be here because I care so deeply about this issue. I care so deeply about the same things that you care about. And I really believe there aren't many opportunities in life to really make a difference for other people. You as Lions get to do this all the time, and I really, really applaud you for it. I was really excited to come here, but I almost didn't make it. I was actually in London and landed on the East Coast at about 7 o'clock this morning. I wasn't sure that I was going to make it. My flight was delayed, so I had to call my wife and tell her if she could please pack a bag for me and send it to this random hotel in Vegas, which is never a call you want to do with your wife, I promise you. I swear, honey, it's for the Lions Club, really. I am the first doctor in my family. We're a family of mathematicians and engineers. We never really thought about medicine much in my family when I was growing up. I guess we all sort of believed we were immortal. My dad was 24 years old when I was born. and he was 35 when he was diagnosed with diabetes. And I can tell you from that point on, medicine and health was really all we thought about. It became the most important thing in our lives. We were such a data-driven family, and because of that, I remember my dad sort of thought of diabetes as a math problem. He would sit there with his paper and his sharpened pencils, and he would diligently document his blood sugars and his insulin doses, and he'd be writing this all down. I remember those sheets of paper really, really well. And he would often just try and make sense of it all. And there were these moments, I remember, even when I was pretty young, where it seemed that my father had this sudden realization that the human body actually was pretty complicated and far more unpredictable than the cars and the engines that he had previously mastered. I read a lot about diabetes at that time, and I've continued to be a perpetual student around diabetes for many years now. While it was new to me and my family at that time, I mean, the disease has been around for thousands of years, and it's been documented for a long time. The word diabetes itself means siphon. You siphon. You literally are siphoning water in this case. You drink a lot of water, and you release a lot of water. That's why they call it siphon. The word mellitus, it's often diabetes mellitus. Mellitus means honey. So literally, this is a disease that siphons off honey water from your body. We've known that for thousands of years. What has changed now, as many people in this room may know, is that there are now some 450 million people around the world that have diabetes. It's more than the entire population of the United States. And within this country, over the next few years, it is expected that half the country will either have diabetes or be pre-diabetic, meaning that they're at risk, high risk of developing diabetes, and many of those people don't even know it. They don't know that they're necessarily at high risk, and this is where I think the Lions Club can make a huge difference. Simply raising awareness can go such a long way in terms of improving and even saving lives. One of the previous causes I know Lions Club has been so focused on, and I've admired the work for some time, is around vision. In 1872, we learned that diabetes can affect vision and exactly how that happens. We subsequently learned what diabetes can do to the kidneys, what it can do to your feet and your legs. We've been learning a lot about diabetes. Nearly 100 years ago, in 1922, Frederick Banting out of Ontario, Canada, won the Nobel Prize because he was the first to successfully treat a diabetic patient with insulin. And it changed everything. We learned for the first time that some of the most tragic and worst consequences of diabetes could in fact be prevented. And oftentimes, that's where the discussion goes, right? Everybody wants to know about the future and what the future might hold. Insulin pumps, artificial pancreas, stem cells, new types of medications. And at CNN and on 60 Minutes, we've done all sorts of reporting in this area, and it's really important. With a story like this, though, I think it's important to really start at the beginning, to really fully understand it. There are different types of diabetes, as you've just heard, type 1, type 2. In the United States, for example, about 90% of people who have diabetes are type 2. Both of these are diseases that affect your body's ability to regulate its blood sugar, its glucose, and keep in mind, glucose is absolutely essential to the body. You need glucose. It's what powers and fuels your cells. But you got to figure out how the glucose actually gets into the cells, what unlocks that. And we know that insulin is that key. People with type 1 diabetes don't produce insulin. You can think of that as not having a key. People with type 2 diabetes, there may be insulin, but it's not working well. You can think of that as a broken key. There can be a genetic component, but with type 2 diabetes, oftentimes it is because of lifestyle. It is because we carry too much weight, we specifically carry too much fat, and that's what makes the insulin not work as well. Everyone just sort of sucked in their gut a little bit, I think, when I said that. That's the physical part of diabetes. And as I say, we've learned a lot about how this disease actually affects the body, the mechanics of it. But I wanted to tell you something else important too. There's an important psychological aspect of this disease as well. And I hope that as you do your important work, you remember this. My father, I remember when he was diagnosed, his prevailing thought after he received that diagnosis was that he had somehow failed. That he had failed himself, that he had failed us, his family. Even decades later, I think that's the thing that sort of surprised me the most, that immediate psychological toll that it took on him. The impact on his feelings of self-worth, his sense of value to the world, and his realization that he wasn't immortal after all. So I think like many of the people in this room would do, we got to work in my family. We got to work because no matter how good you are at diet and exercise, when it comes to type 2 diabetes, most of us can do a little bit better. And as a doctor who now travels the world looking at these types of stories all over the world, I often like to start by inspiring people to take better care of their health. But that's often easier said than done, especially when it comes to your own family, especially when it comes to your own dad. It's probably not realistic to tell somebody to start exercising an hour a day if they've never really done that sort of thing. That's not going to make a big difference if they don't really actually do it. It's probably not practical to tell someone to completely change their diet, to only eat organic, never eat fast food. It's just hard for some people to live that life. And as I learned, your kids will actually call you out on this as well. My kids will call me out on this. I was actually driving around with I have 3 daughters. I was driving around with my middle daughter a couple of years ago. And I had this moment. She was in the back seat. I caught a glimpse of her in the rearview mirror. And I just had that moment that you have often when you're a parent where I suddenly wondered what the world had in store for her, where her life was going to go. And as I was thinking this, she picked up my stethoscope that was sitting on the back seat, and she started playing with it, and she put the little pieces in her ears, and she's 6 or 7 years old at the time, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, she's going to be a doctor. This is the moment where it happened. And she took the other piece of the stethoscope, and she eventually brought it up to her mouth, and she said, "Welcome to McDonald's, can I take your order?" Not at all what I expected. The truth is, I think a lot of people, medical doctors, nurses, people who've gone through some sort of medical training would agree with me on this, that we didn't get a lot of education about the right nutrition when we were in medical school. Even today, there's all these books out there telling you exactly how you should eat. Eat lots of fat, eat no fat, eat only 35% protein. It's a lot to manage. There's a lot of messages coming at you. And despite all that information, keep in mind that the diabetes rates have continued to skyrocket. Half the country, diabetic or pre-diabetic. So one of the things that I've tried to do as a physician journalist who travels the world is go around the world and find out, are there places that are doing a particularly good job? Are there places where rates of diabetes are particularly low, and why is that? And so we started on this mission. And one of the places that we found, and this was an interesting place, was deep in the Amazon rainforest. And it involved a group of Chimani indigenous tribe members. Chimani is the name of an indigenous tribe. They have this tribe there that had been studied by a group of intrepid researchers. And I decided that I wanted to go live with them and see what their lives were like, because what I was hearing was they had virtually no diabetes. They also had virtually no heart disease and no dementia. It's incredible. How is that possible? So I flew into La Paz, Bolivia, the highest capital city in the world. And from there, we took a small little plane to Ruranbaque, Bolivia, and got in these 4x4s and drove as far into the rainforest as we could drive. And we could drive no further. We jumped into these little dugout canoes and started making our way deep into the Amazon rainforest to find this indigenous tribe. Common perception about rainforest is that it's like a jungle. That you got this thick underbrush and you got to machete your way through. It's actually not like that. In a true rainforest, you usually have a pretty big canopy. So there's not that much sunlight getting through, and the ground is more covered with moss and little streams. It's really wet. It's really soggy. And I lived like that for a period of weeks where you just have to be comfortable constantly being wet. But it was the environment of the Chimani. It was the environment of people who were virtually immune to things like diabetes, heart disease, and dementia. Now this is a group of people who are far off the grid, right? In many ways, they represented the end point of human evolution before industrialization and agriculturalization came into play. You get the idea. This is a really, really remote tribe. They're living entirely off the land. They are hunter-foragers. They tried to teach me how to hunt as well, and I realized that if I was left on my own, I would have surely died of starvation. It's incredible what they're able to do. They show us what we're supposed to be like as humans in terms of how we live, how we eat, how we move, and how we rest. And it was just fascinating. I think people in this room might appreciate that this is a particular culture that has been preserved for thousands of years. They have their own language. So there are only people in the world who speak this language. There are 7,000 languages in the world. Half of them are expected to disappear by the end of the century. We're losing a language every 2 weeks. But this particular group, this indigenous tribe, has been able to hang on to this language. And they taught me a lot of things about health. And this is really why I wanted to tell you the story. They taught me that it is possible to live your entire life without getting any sort of disease. Maybe that sounds obvious to some of the people in this room, but I think there is a perception, especially in the developed world, that near the end of your life, you're going to deal with disease. You're going to be in a hospital. You may be in a nursing home. You're going to have to deal with some sort of illness that may require medications or procedures. That's just not how they think there. In the United States, once you get into your 40s, 85% of us have some form of heart disease. 85%. They have virtually none. As I said, half the country, either pre-diabetic or diabetic within the next few years. They have none. So how do they do it? That was what I really wanted to learn. I'm sure that when you hear this, that may be what you're thinking as well. What do they know that I don't know? I'll tell you a few things. As far as activity goes, and this is really interesting because, again, I think we can learn a lot from people who have actually reached these endpoints of having no disease their entire life. As far as their activity goes, they are active. They are standing 90% of their waking hours. They hunt a lot. But many people may have a perception of someone who's hunting as running through the forest with a spear in hand, basically trying to outrun these animals. That's not what happens. They track these animals and they outlast them, but they don't outrun them. We calculated the average Chimani actually on their feet 90% of their daylight hours, but also walking about 17,000 steps a day. It's not that it's intense activity. It's just that it's really consistent. That is part of how the people with the healthiest hearts in the world live. When it comes to diet, and this is one of the more interesting things, because within the world of diabetes, you hear all sorts of different things in terms of what is the perfect diet. The Chimane, they're living off a diet that I think would surprise a lot of people. You often think of what's known as the Paleo Diet, which is 55% meat. For the Chimane, 70% of what they ate was actually carbs. 70% carbs. The other 30% is split up between protein and fat. But the types of carbs that they eat, again, as you might suspect, are totally unprocessed, unrefined carbs. Things like cassava and plantain. They have no processed foods, no trans fats, and no added sugar. But again, 70% is carbs. When you're living that sort of life, you don't always know if you're going to be able to actually be successful hunting or fishing, so you count on the farmed food. There's also times when it just gets really tough. They really have very little food. And so for periods of days, they would sort of go on a sort of fasting diet. They would fast, almost nearly fast, for several days in a row, and they believe that is another reason why they've been able to stay so healthy. As far as rest goes and sleep, as you can imagine, if you don't have any devices, no electricity, no artificial light, you sleep a lot. I have this little tent set up in the middle of their encampment, and about 9:30, the only human sounds I would hear were snoring. I'd hear snoring all over the camp, and about 6